Day. We're a group of Muslims from the nation conversing about the deteriorating conditions of the south side of this windy city. Inside this old yet beautiful rundown cathedral, I sat 10 rows back watching. Young people, old people, wheelchair-bound seniors, babies crying, all would come and go. Some would stop, some would cross themselves, others unable to even look. But all at some point would move on. Then the line stopped. Somebody wasn't able to move on. Somebody didn't care about the Muslims taking their position as Minister Farrakhan entered the cathedral. Somebody needed time. Nobody said a word. We all just watched. We watched this precious, beautiful angel, 8-year-old child stand over her open casket of her cousin and hug him like she may never see him again. We watched this child gently touch and caress the face of another child, yet one was living and one had passed on. We watched her father, dressed in a Jesus Peace medallion with a long black t-shirt, clutch his little princess by his side and look into the sky in utter pain. We all just sat and watched and pretended that we weren't in the room, so this child who walks with God could have one last moment with her hero. She kissed him on the cheek and clutched her daddy as tight as she knew how, and slowly walked down the aisle with tears streaming down her swollen face. And as I turned around to witness the powerful exit of this young woman, the young man's entire family was standing at the front gate to this congregational hall of God awaiting their entrance. We rose to our feet, and with deep respect for their pain and suffering, we stood motionless as they walked down the center aisle, led by some of the most powerful men and women of faith of our land. And now, as the mother of this 16-year-old boy had told me the Wednesday prior to this, she could lay her baby to rest. I wrote that piece in 2009. I had just taken a position here at Global Grind. Thank you. I had just taken a position here at Global Grind in 2009, and Blockzilla was there. I think that's it. Who's with us now. And Russell had this idea for Global Grind, that Global Grind would be a hip-hop dig, if you will, or a hip-hop Huffington Post Jermaine, if you will. And that didn't work. Didn't work at all. So we went to a different direction, and when he brought me on, I knew Russell because I made movies in my previous life, and the movie I made a movie about Russell for IFC channel called Lockdown USA, about the end and the fight to end the Rockefeller drug laws here in New York State. And so I had known Russell for a few years, and he asked me to come join him at Global Grind. He said, I want to bring some social justice, I want to bring some politics, I want to bring some meat to this site. And in 2009, a young man was killed in Chicago. And in June of 2009 was the beginning of the Arab uprising in the Middle East. And for a lot of us, we thought it was Egypt on January 26, 2 years later. But actually, in Iran, in the summer of 2009, the students had started to rebel against President Ahmadinejad. And there was a video that was released of a young girl. The young girl was literally killed. We literally watched this young girl die on that video. And even the president of the United States was asked this question in the Rose Garden, what do you think of this young girl whose name was Neda? What do you think of this video? And he said, oh, my condolences to her family, so on and so on. And in September of 2009, if you can click this, Mr. Jones, thank you. This video was sent to me. And I remember Zilla sitting in the meeting down at 50 Broadway. And this video was sent to me, and someone had got a video on a cell phone of an after-school fight between a group of kids in Chicago at Fenger High. Anyone here from Chicago? Anybody born and raised? So Fenger High School in Chicago. There's an after school. Oh, hello. How you doing? Are you in Chicago?
It's AC.
Hi.
I'm in Chicago.
So there's an after-school fight outside Fenger High School, and this young man happened to be walking through this fight and got hit over the head with a 2x4 and killed. And the person who sent me this video said, "Can you please just get this video out there?" Now, who here is on Twitter today? Raise your hand if you're on Twitter. Who here is on Twitter in 2013? 2012, keep your hands up. 2011, 2010, 2009, 2008, 2007, 2006, the founder of Twitter. Thank you for having us. The food is delicious. How's your stocks? Good? So as you can see, back then there were just a few of us on Twitter. I think the only people in hip hop on Twitter were like Nas and Fabulous and Common. And so we thought, what could we do with this video? Could we actually get this? I don't even think there's trending topics back then. I think it was just a list of words inside of Twitter. No one knew what those words were. And they just like a list of words. So could we get something happening on that list of words? So we created a campaign at Global Grind called He Has a Name. And it reminded me of a conversation that I had with then Mayor of Newark, Cory Booker, now Senator for all our friends who live in New Jersey, your junior senator from New Jersey, about what happens when black kids die. Before the Black Lives Matter movement, which is unbelievably powerful and inspiring, what happens when black kids die? And what happens when white kids die? And for anyone who has wondered the past 2 years, I've been here, I am white. So for the record, let's get that part out of the way. There's no PBS show about me. When white kids die, Mr. Jones, if you click that clicker, remember their names. This is Natalie Holloway. This young lady was killed, and again, this is no pain is pain, right? This is no comment on pain differing by race. Pain is pain. When a mother or father loses a child, pain is pain. And so this is absolutely no disrespect to the parents and the family of this young woman who was killed in the Bahamas. This is Natalie Holloway Aruba, over a decade ago. This is JonBenet Ramsey, killed over 2 decades ago in Colorado. And this young man here is Eitan Patz, who was killed over 3 decades ago, whose trial just happened last month and was a mistrial. So when white kids die, their names are on the front page of the paper. And up until very recently, in 2009, when black kids died, in 2010, and oftentimes today, their names are just a statistic. Homicide 247 of the year, teenage boy killed. And so we thought, could we create a campaign called He Has a Name, just to give the name? Like, could you just remember the name of the child? And so us at Global Grind created He Has a Name, and the first one we started with was this young man, Darion Albert. And Darion Albert was killed on September 25th, 2009. We created He Has a Name, Darion Albert, and it trended in 6 hours on Twitter. And the White House called us and said, what do we do? What do we do now? We said, send them to Chicago. This is 2009. Talking about Chicago today, 2015, it's 2009. And I went to the funeral in Chicago, and I sat in that church of 3,000 people, and Minister Farrakhan and Reverend Sharpton and Reverend Jackson and all these great men and women of the faith and parents and crying, and it was awful to watch any teenage child be put to rest and a parent have to lay their child to rest. And I came home that night, and there was a record, and Brittany's the singer of our group and the music player of our group, so there was a record, the Maxwell record, Pretty Wings, right? That really pretty ass Maxwell record, Marcus. So there was that record, Pretty Wings, and so I just played that song over and over again. I don't really consider myself a writer. I mean, I was in speech therapy till I was in 5th grade, and I cheated in my SATs, and there's absolutely no statute of limitations on cheating. I'm ashamed of it. I'm certainly not telling my child to do that. But I scored very low in my English section of my SAT, so I don't consider myself a writer, but I just wrote. I just put my head down and just wrote whatever came out of me after that experience in Chicago, and that piece came out, the beginning of that piece that I read to you. And I woke up the next day on Sunday morning in New York, and I got a phone call from a mother. And the mother said to me, my son was killed on Friday, and I saw what you did, what you all did for Darion's family. Could you write he has a name, Kevin Miller. Kevin Miller was 13 years old from Queens, and Kevin, that Friday, Darion was laid to rest on Saturday. That Friday was walking home from school, after school on Friday, going to McDonald's in Queens, and he was a block away, and two 16-year-old kids got into a fight. They both pulled out guns, they both shot, they missed. Pop! Kevin shot one shot in the back of the head, dead. Didn't even see the bullet coming. A block away. And so I traveled to Queens, and I sat with Donna Hood, Kevin's mother, and I sat in his bedroom, literally sat in his bedroom, you know, with his Jordans lined up against the wall, and everything had to move, and just sat there and with a stranger, and just you know, watched her cry and watched her mother grieve. And at Global Ground, we just again tried to bring some dignity with these stories, and wrote He Has a Name, Kevin Miller. We began to write more and more of these stories over time, and we had a great political editor at that time, Shaka Griffith, who's no longer with us, but really deserves a tremendous amount of credit, and certainly Christina, who has carried the mantle ever since, a tremendous amount of credit for carrying these stories forward. I was told of a story in Detroit. Anyone from Detroit, Michigan? I was told of a story in Detroit, Michigan. Anyone watch The First 48?
Yeah.
I think I saw a friend over the weekend. I said, if you ever want to use anything against me, I'm a big fan of cop shows. I think all the work we do for police reform, I think the police would happily know that I watch all their TV shows. So I love those shows. Alaska State Troopers, First 48. So The First 48, if you don't know it, The First 48 is a show, and they say if you don't solve a homicide in the first 48 hours, most likely it will never get solved. So it's following a detective unit in the first 48 hours after homicide is committed. So The First 48 was in Detroit, filming. Now there was a 17-year-old kid killed in Detroit. The police thought somebody, you know, who they knew killed the 17-year-old kid, and it was a real. All murder is stupid, but this one was particularly stupid. It was over, you know, it's like candy in the store. Like someone bumped you the wrong way, and you know, dropped the candy, and like, why'd you drop the candy in my foot? And they started beefing, and then the 17-year-old kid was killed. The police thought they knew who killed him, and they went to the house where the person they thought lived. Now, the house had two stories. The person they thought actually lived in the second floor. They went to the first floor, with the First 48 crew behind them, cameras rolling. They came in at midnight. They came in with stun grenades and battering rams, and a 7-year-old girl was sleeping on the couch against the window. 7-year-old girl was clutched deeply, closely to her grandmother, sleeping on this couch against the window. And the stun grenade goes through the window, breaks the window, onto the couch. The grandma jumps up. The police come to the door, guns blazing. Grandma says, "What are you doing? Please shoot!" Bah! One shot. Killed. She has a name, Aiyana Jones. 3 trials. 3 trials. Felony count first trial, mistrial. Misdemeanor count the second trial, mistrial. Misdemeanor count the third trial, mistrial. State just dropped the case. This family right here is broke. I've visited them many times in Detroit. They have absolutely nothing. If you talk about poverty in this country, it's the deepest poverty we have. This 7-year-old girl's never seen justice. Her family's never seen justice. And they never saw the bullet coming. We wrote, Mike, if you will, we wrote story after story after story after story after story after story after story. That's a 4-year-old young boy from the Bronx. After story after story. He has a name, and she has a name, and he has a name, and this is Heaven Sutton, 7-year-old girl, literally was killed outside her house selling candy. This photograph is remarkable because they have a photograph of her selling candy. And then on February 26, 2012, click it, Mike. This young man was killed. We just wrote a story. He has a name, Trayvon Martin. We didn't think anything of it. We just was another one of our series of stories, And what I want to get to today, and I certainly won't keep you all too long, and what I see in this company, which is incredibly inspiring by many, by most, almost by all, is about commitment and about commitment to the work. We just kept writing. We didn't get awards, we didn't get accolades, we didn't get even attention. We were this hip hop site that was talking about these issues, and we started the Justice for Trayvon Martin Facebook page. And I would say this humbly, on the first day of that page was started, a week after Trayvon was killed, we had 2 people sign up. 2. I couldn't even get my mother to sign up. I was like, Mom, can you just press like? Just press like. My girlfriend, nobody. But we had 2 people that first day, probably me, Zilla, and Shaka. And we just kept at it, and we kept at it, and we knew something was wrong. We knew this one seemed a little bit different. We knew that there wasn't an arrest. George Zimmerman still wasn't arrested. We knew something was wrong, and we just kept writing. And I went down to Sanford, Florida, and I was in Columbia, South America at the time at the christening of my goddaughter. And Ben Crump, who Cheryl knows quite well, and Tina, and Ben calls and says, Michael, the family saw what y'all are doing. Would you come march with us in Sanford? And I hopped in a plane from Columbia the next day and flew to Orlando and then drove down to Sanford. I had written a piece at that time. I just wanted to get in the game, so I was getting on a plane going to California, and I wanted to write something. I wanted to, be in the conversation, and I didn't really know what to write. And I get in the plane, and I'm going to see Russell, and it's a Sunday, and it's 9 o'clock at night, and I fly first, I fly coach, I fly cargo, I don't care what I fly, whatever you put me in, I'm happily, as long as it takes me there, I'll be very humble how I travel. Happily flying first class this time, and so the plane was waiting for someone to show up, and we're waiting and waiting. I'm like, I'm gonna write this piece, I got it in me, Scoob, I got this thing in me, and then boom, who shows up is freaking Rihanna. Right? And so she sits right in front of me. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so pretty. All I want to do is just look at her. But I'm a feminist and I don't want to objectify women, but she's really, really pretty. And then she falls asleep and I was like, let me not look at a sleeping woman because that's a little creepy. So thank God she fell asleep because I stopped looking at her. So I put my head down and just wrote a piece. And when I got to LA, I sent it to my girlfriend who's way smarter than I am. And I said, what do you think of this? And she's my girlfriend of 16 years. Don't think I have a kid with another woman. That's my girlfriend. My girlfriend is 16 years. Let's get that clear too. This is 2015. There's no ring there, but she's still my partner in the love of my life. So I sent her the piece, and she says, "This is what you're gonna call it." And she gave the name. She said, "Dear white people, you will never look suspicious like Trayvon Martin." And it's about privilege. It's about white privilege. It's about me being white. It's about me walking down New York City street when I leave this office today. And me and Jermaine could walk outside and the taxi's gonna stop for me and may pass Jermaine by. And me walking into a store and never being asked to pay before I eat. And never seeing a woman walk by me and clutch her purse as she walks by me in fear what I might do to her. Or never have to walk through my own neighborhood and someone ask me for my papers. What George Zimmerman did to that day to Trayvon Martin, saying, young boy, what are you doing here? Show me your papers. As if we're in South Africa during apartheid, you have to prove that you're allowed to be walking through that neighborhood at a certain time of the day, and then boom, one bullet through his heart. And Trayvon was killed. And so I wrote that piece to bring white people to the conversation, because we had to be part of this conversation if we were ever to see a compassionate America in this dream of ours. Now, I'm not a post-racialist, I'm a post-racist. I don't believe in post-racialism. I think we should see color. We should recognize color. We should celebrate stories. Thank you, Marcus. You're here all night. I took these pictures. These happened just to them closing their eyes all at once. Then this young man was killed, and we knew as much work as we do and as much commitment as we have, we know that the tide against us sometimes is stronger than how hard we can swim. Tina, were you here when Jordan? You were here when Jordan died, right? Yeah. So Tina had joined us, I think, around that time, 2012, and again, it carried the mantle of these stories. So I share this stage, certainly with Shaka and Tina and everyone from Global Grind who has done this work, because it is work we're very proud of. Even though it's tough work, it's work we're very proud of. And Jordan Davis, as we know his story, he was killed. And I would say in this next picture, Mike, my grandfather and my grandmother lived in Newtown, Connecticut. So I knew this community quite well. I think we all remember that day. And 3 weeks later, at the State of the Union address, and this is the work that we do, right? These are the stories that we are covering. These are the things that we are passionate about. At the State of the Union address in Washington, Hadiya Pendleton, who was killed in Chicago just a few weeks after marching in the president's inauguration parade, was killed in Chicago in a park with her friends. The president, after we had seen Aurora that summer, Colorado, with the movie theater shooting, and we saw the Sikh temple in Wisconsin, and we saw Newtown and Sandy Hook Elementary School. The president of these United States, whether you like him or you don't like him, whether you think he is great or not great, whatever in his position, put a black family in the First Lady's box next to Michelle Obama and recognized that their pain, the pain of Hadiya's parents, was equal to the pain and suffering of all the parents who had lost their children that year, I thought was monumental in the shifting of the narrative and the changing of the story. And I give a tremendous amount of credit to all the people, especially those in this room who had done that work, because it gave the president space to do that. We oftentimes criticize him for not discussing the issues of African American community enough. It gave him the space to put Pendleton's parents in that First Lady's box. This is a photograph of the first day of the trial in the family room. I don't share this photograph publicly, but privately, certainly, I just took it as an archive of that moment of Tracy and Sabrina. You can keep going, Mike. So let me bring you to the point of all this. I see Jada on the weekends at 11 o'clock at night. I see you working hard. I see Jermaine and Nicole in that room busting your butts on QOTD, trying to make it, figure it out, work through it. I see, Brittany and Zilla building an incredible video platform. I see Vicky and Kelsey consistently working hours and hours and hours, and Tina creating an unbelievable brand for news of our generation. And I see Danielle, your incredible compassion and joy and happiness you bring to this space, and so many others. I see Sam crunching numbers after numbers and trying to make us better every day. I see mentorship of Maria and Dan and people looking after us, and some of us a little younger, including me, losing my hair. But we do this work for a reason. We do this work, and I want to show you something, and I want to forewarn you that the language is tough. But I asked my girlfriend this morning if I should show it, and she said yes, so I followed her advice. Because I tried to show it at a speech I gave in New Orleans, and they censored it, and they took it out of my speech without me knowing it. I don't want to die. I don't think anyone in this room wants to die. But there comes a point, I hope no one in this room wants to die, and if you do, certainly, and in all seriousness, there is certainly help for you. Because I don't want to trivialize that. Hopefully, that you can find help. You put your life into your work, and they say this. I saw a lady on the train today. I try to be present when I speak and not try to think too much of what I want to say. But I saw a lady on the train today, and on her arm she had tattooed balance. And we oftentimes are told by our friends or our family, you got to balance. You got to need more work-life balance. Well, my grandfather told me that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I see Jada, I'm looking at you, and I see there's love for what you do, or she wouldn't be up at 11 o'clock on Sunday trying to get a story out and telling everyone else you get the story out. And so to commit to that work, and for sometimes the work that we do, people don't like it, and people are offended by it, and people want to harm us for doing that work. And so during the height of the Trayvon Martin trial, I don't say this for a badge of honor because it's the scariest thing in my life, and I don't pretend to be tough. I'm not. I played football for 10 years now. I've never been in a fight in my life. I don't like violence. I don't like guns. But this is the kind of stuff I would get on a regular basis, and I won't read it because I don't read that language, and I don't say that language out loud. But this is the kind of stuff that we would get, and all of us, Tina, would get it. I would get it. Shaka certainly got it when he was with us, and and I say this, Tom, and I hope I don't get in trouble from HR for showing this. I probably should have, now thinking about it, probably should have talked to you before I show this. If you want to talk to me afterwards, you come to my office. I'll come to your office, I guess. But I say this, I'm sorry, I say this because, and you can keep going, Mike, and we don't have to read the whole damn thing. It's not pretty. You keep going. I say this because that's pretty. That's my son. And that's Mateo Ali. And I say this because many of us go home to loved ones or have loved ones, whether they're children or parents or boyfriends or girlfriends or husbands or wives or nieces and nephews or best friends or roommates. Because I don't want to die for him. I want him to grow with the Father. But I would tell you this, when I look into my child's eyes and I look at the work that we do, and I look at, when Tom asked me, to come join him on this journey, I believe in this place. I believe in the people in this place more important than I believe in this place, but I believe in the people in this place because I believe there's commitment here. I believe there's a tremendous amount of commitment and passion and compassion and belief that what we're doing is bigger and greater than the sum of all of us, really. And so when I look at Mateo, I don't want him to grow up and say, Daddy lived for me. Daddy just, Jermaine got a 2-year-old and, we look at our kids, right? I'm like, Daddy lived for me. I want Mateo to look at me and say, Dad, I'm proud of what Daddy did. I look up to Daddy and he's still living his life. He's still doing what he wants to do and the passion he has. So I roll with the punches, but certainly recognize that, to see a parent lose their child is the worst thing in the planet. And I have a child, and some of us are lucky to have children. And if I could fight for the dignity of their children, then Mateo has to share his daddy with them. I'll end with these last slides. I was driving into New York City when I saw this across my Twitter feed. This is Mike Brown's stepfather, and again, as a father, he said, Ferguson police just executed my unarmed son. I think it goes without saying that all of us jumped at the moment of that story breaking and went to work. This is obviously Mike Brown and what happened in Ferguson. There's good news in all this, and I say this with privilege, and I think there's still, putting aside race for a moment, there's still a tremendous amount of privilege in this room. There's something happening in this country that is tough. Tougher for some than for me. Much tougher for some than for me. The boot is not on my neck. I was given a lottery ticket when I was born. I was a man, one. I was an American. I was white. I was straight. And I won the lotto. And there was no struggle. There's certainly obstacles and certain things I got to navigate, but there was no struggle. And for many in this country, for many in this room, your stories are inspiring and powerful. And I had dinner with a friend last night who went from being an orphan in India to being in the White House. I now just graduated from Princeton with a master's in public policy, and her story is a book. But there's something happening in this country, and it's happening in this office, and it's happening in this company. And that is, and I truly believe wholeheartedly, and white is a color, right, Marcus? This story is in color. Thank you, Brittany. I wholeheartedly believe in that vision for America. I wholeheartedly believe that we are on our way to a much better nation. I do understand that I'm privileged to have that optimism, and some of us may not have that optimism, and we may not get there. This morning I listened to King's last speech, which I think is one of his greatest, if not his greatest, in Memphis, Tennessee, the night before he was killed, and talking about not wanting to die. And then, of course, the next day he was assassinated. And he talks about, we may not get there, but he does believe that, we will reach the mountaintop. I believe that in places like this is what's pushing this country to a much better place, in a diverse work environment, pushing forward a narrative of stories in color. It's the reason why I committed to this company, Tom. I certainly like you a lot, but I like what you've created here and the team you've built here. And it's the reason why we continue to do our work every single day. It's the reason why Jermaine's email this morning was at 5:14. Correct me if I'm wrong.
6:17.
6:17?
I watch you at 5:14.
Even with me at 5:14. I got the private email first, and then y'all got the public email at 6:17. You love QOTD. You're passionate about it. You believe in it. We see that. We feel that. Even though it took a week to get the email out, we still feel that. So we fight for these young women. We fight for the 15-year-old girl who was tortured and attacked by the police in McKinney, Texas. We fight for your children, and we fight for my child. And we wake up every day, and we come to work in this beautiful, sometimes not so beautiful. I know we have a spring cleanup. We thank you for that, Elizabeth and Eunice. Office space and good people, most importantly. So I hope you can see we've written thousands and thousands of articles on He Has a Name. There was a beautiful, one thing I think I am most proud of this company and Global Grind and my history here, if those who have come up with me in this journey. Many of them came as interns. I started as interns, and now they are managing editors and music editors and social media managers, and some went on to leave and run other companies, do other things, and so I am incredibly blessed to have a team on Global Grind, and certainly now with Newsroom with Cheryl and Tina and others, and Lynette, to build out this passion and compassion. So I live by 3 sets of values, and I will leave you with this. I think this company shares them: compassion, generosity, and equity. I like equality, but I like equality with equity. So I, every day, try to push that forward in the work that we do here, and hopefully I can join you in that journey as well. Thank you so much.